The epidermal tissue consists of the epidermis, the cuticle, the trichome or the root hair, and also the stomata. So vascular bundles are usually seen located in the midribs. In the case of dicot leaf, they have palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma, which will be clearly visible to you under the microscope. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on chapter 6, that is Anatomy of Flowering Plants. I am Dr. Divya, Biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session, we had studied about the dicotyledonous stem and the monocotyledonous stem. What are the different type of cells or tissues that are present inside the dicotyledonous and the monocotyledonous stem. And I had told you that there is no major difference between the dicot stem and the monocot stem when only with respect to that of the stele. So when we see the stele of the monocot and the dicot stem, one major difference that we can find or identify is with that of the pith. So dicots, they had pith which was made up of parenchymatous cells and the cells were large and loosely packed. But in the case of monocots, the pith region was completely absent, or in other words, I can say the parenchymatous region that was supposed to be there was completely absent. And not just that, when looking into the vascular bundles, in a dicot stem, the vascular bundles are neatly arranged in a radial manner. But in the case of monocot stem, they are haphazardly arranged, wherein as if it is scattered here and there, it is being arranged. So these are the one of the major differences when compared to the anatomy of the monocot stem and that of the dicot. But if I'm talking about the morphology of the monocot and the dicot, it is easy to identify the plant based on the roots and the leaves, which we have already discussed when talking about the morphology of flowering plants. I told you anatomy is one of the important branch of science wherein you can identify the plants by looking at the differences in the cells that are present inside the plant body. So moving on to today's session, we will start with studying about the leaf. So in the previous sessions, I have covered with the dicot and the monocot root and the stem. So today we will study about the dicot leaf and the monocot leaf. So to begin with, we will take a look into the dorsiventral leaf. So dorsiventral leaf or of dicotyledonous leaf. And you can ask me, ma'am, why did you put two words here, dorsiventral as well as dicotyledonous leaf? You could have just put it as dicotyledonous leaf and monocotyledonous leaf, right? This is one of the major morphological difference that you can see when you see a dicot leaf and a monocot leaf. So dorsiventral, dicot leaves are dorsiventral and monocot leaves, they are isobilateral. So dorsiventral means the dorsal side. So say for example, if this is the leaf, the dorsal side of the leaf and the ventral side of the leaf, that is the upper side and the lower side. There is difference between the morphology of the upper side and the lower side. You can distinguish the upper side, that is the dorsal side, and the lower side, that is the ventral side. So that is why dicotyledonous leaf is also called as the dorsiventral leaf. So in the examination, if they ask, explain about the dorsiventral leaf, it is easily understood that dorsiventral leaf is nothing but dicotyledonous leaf. So this term is also very important. So in today's session, we shall start with the dicotyledonous leaf, wherein one of the major morphological character of the dicotyledonous leaf is the arrangement of the veins. That is, in dicots, almost all the species of the dicot plants, they have reticulate venation. But when it comes, and also when you look at the upper surface, that is the dorsal surface, and the lower surface, that is the ventral surface, they are different in their morphological characters. So therefore, it is also called as the dorsiventral leaf. No, so we shall study in today's session with regard to the dicotyledonous leaf, we shall study the different parts or the different tissues, that is the epidermal tissue, epidermis. We shall see about the mesophyll and then we shall see about the vascular system. Here, leaves, they are made up of a common type of parenchymatous cells. There is no, unlike the stem and the roots wherein we had studied about the collenchyma, the parenchyma, the sclerenchyma and all that, leaf, the arrangement of cells is very, very simple when compared to the root and the stem. So we shall study about these one by one. So first moving on to the leaf epidermis. So leaf epidermis, again here epiderma, any plant body, the outer covering is nothing but the epidermis. Any part you take for that matter, be it the flower, be it the root, the stem, the leaves or whatever for that matter in the case of a plant, the whole plant body is covered by a protective layer called as epidermis, which is common to almost all the plants. Just like how we human beings have the whole body is covered with a layer of skin, right, which is protective in function. Similarly, the whole plant body is covered by a skin, which is nothing but called as the epidermis. So here it covers both the upper surface of the leaf, that is the dorsal surface of the leaf, as well as the ventral surface of the leaf. So therefore it is also called as the adaxial epidermis and the abaxial epidermis. So if you get confused, it is easy to remember. Back. Always remember, the back of the leaf is the ventral portion of the leaf. So abaxial, back means ventral. So if this is the dorsal, this will be the ventral side. So those epidermis covering the back of the leaf, that is the abaxial layer or region of the leaf, or the ventral region of the leaf, is called as the abaxial epidermis. So once you know the ventral surface is abaxial or epidermis, obviously the other one will be called as the adaxial epidermis, that is the dorsal epidermis. So it covers both the upper surface, which is called as the adaxial epidermis, and it also covers the lower surface, which is called as the abaxial epidermis. And also there is a conspicuous cuticle being present. So remember, in general, when I had started with the session beginning with the anatomy of flowering plants, I had told you the epidermal tissue consists of the epidermis, the cuticle, the trichome or the root hair, and also the stomata. So whatever here, the cuticle, the stomata, everything belongs to the epidermal tissue, because the cuticle, stomata, be it the trichome, which is the leaf hair, all that arise from some of the protrudings of the epidermal cells itself. So therefore, first we'll see what this cuticle is. So cuticle here, it is nothing but a waxy coating. So it is very much visible in lotus plants. Why lotus plant? Because throughout the year, throughout its life cycle, the lotus plant is in the water. So if it has to be protected from the water, then it should have a waxy coating. So as I gave you the example previously, so I told you, if you just coat a paper with the wax coating, with a candle wax or something, and then pour water, the water will not spread. It will just sit on the paper as a water droplet, and once you tilt it, it will fall off and the paper will remain completely dry, right? The same function the cuticle also performs on the leaf. So cuticle, it is one of the protective layer that is present above the epidermis. So this cuticle is actually conspicuous, that is, it is visible. Conspicuous means something that is visible. Inconspicuous means which is not visible. So it is evident. You can see it easily. It is visible on the leaf. So therefore, it is a conspicuous cuticle that is present. And the abaxial epidermis. So what is the abaxial epidermis? It is the epidermis that is present at the ventral surface or the lower surface of the leaf. So the abaxial epidermis, it actually has more amount of stomata when compared to that of the adaxial epidermis. So it has more number of stomata when compared to that of the adaxial epidermis, and the adaxial epidermis may even lack stomata in some cases. So this is one of the characteristic features of the dicotyledonous leaf. Not just the dicotyledonous, the monocotyledonous leaf as well, that is the presence of the stomata. So how are the stomata formed? It is nothing but the modification of some of the epidermal cells which gets modified into stomata. And stomata, you know, it is very important, which actually helps the plant in the process of transpiration and also in the process of exchange of gases, that is during the respiration. So stomata is present on the ventral surface, that is on the abaxial surface, it is present more in number, and on the adaxial surface, that is on the dorsal surface, it is present fewer in number. But on some species of the dicotyledonous plants, the stomata on the adaxial surface is completely absent. That is on the dorsal surface, it is completely absent. So these are few of the characteristic features of the dicotyledonous leaf epidermis. So you can see here, it is made up of, the epidermis made up of an upper epidermis called as the adaxial epidermis, and it is made up of the lower epidermis. So this is the dorsal side of the leaf, and this is the ventral side of the leaf, the lower side. So on the ventral side, there is the abaxial epidermis being present. Then we have the epidermis. So above the epidermis, can you see here, there is one layer called as the cuticle. So this cuticle is nothing but the waxy covering that is present. And apart from that, here as you can see, they have mentioned as stoma, which is nothing but the opening where the stomata are present. So therefore here, stomata or the stomatal apparatus are present on the abaxial surface, that is on the ventral surface. So stomata are also present on the ventral surface. So next, moving on to the other parts, we shall see inner to the epidermis what are the different types of cells that are present in the dicotyledonous leaf. So next comes the mesophyll region. So if you remember, while talking about the root and the stem, we used a term called as the cortex, right? Or the hypodermis region, and we use the term cortex. So all the parenchyma cells, the collenchyma cells, sclerenchyma cells, all those belong to the cortex, right? Just like that, in the leaf, we use the term mesophyll. So phyll is something related to the leaf, and mesophyll is that portion of the leaf which contains the chlorophyll pigment. So therefore, the entire leaf contains the chlorophyll pigment, right? So throughout the entire lamina or the area of the leaf, it has the chlorophyll pigments. Therefore, it bears the parenchyma cells which have the chlorophyll pigments called as the chlorenchyma. So therefore, those regions of the leaf which have the chlorenchyma cells constitute the mesophyll. So mesophyll is the tissue that is present between the upper and the lower epidermis, means between the adaxial and the abaxial epidermis. So this particular region extending right from the epidermis, below the epidermis, up till the upper epidermis to the lower epidermis, whatever cells are being present, that is nothing but the mesophyll. So again here, what is the mesophyll made up of? The mesophyll contains cells that are mostly parenchymatous, and these parenchyma cells, they actually have chloroplast in them, and they are the ones which carry out the process or help the plants to synthesize their own food through a process called as the photosynthesis. So here, parenchyma cells, those parenchyma cells having chloroplast can also be called as the chlorenchyma, or you can also mention it as parenchyma cells with chloroplast. Both are one and the same. So it is made up of, complete mesophyll region is made up of the parenchyma cells, and these parenchyma cells possess chloroplast. Therefore, they are photosynthetic in function. And when we look at the parenchyma cells, again there are two types of parenchyma cells present here. One is called as the palisade parenchyma, and the other one is called as the spongy parenchyma. So palisade parenchyma, if you remember my previous sessions, I had told you parenchyma cells, they can be oval, circular, elongated. So, and also sometimes they can be irregularly shaped. So similarly here, palisade parenchymas are the cells which are elongated. So they are elongated. So if you can see here, those cells which are elongated or which are long in nature, they are called as the palisade parenchyma. And because it is the cells are present in the mesophyll region, it is called as the palisade mesophyll. So the palisade mesophyll is made up of palisade parenchyma. What is there inside this palisade parenchyma? It has chloroplast, that which gives the green color pigment to the plants, and also the spongy parenchyma. So spongy parenchyma, they do not have a particular shape. So they are usually irregularly shaped, and they are present with large gaps, or they are filled with air cavities. So they have large gaps, and that is nothing but the spongy mesophyll or the spongy parenchyma. So the adaxially placed palisade parenchyma. So the palisade parenchyma is placed on the adaxial surface, right? It is placed on the dorsal surface, whereas the spongy parenchyma is placed towards the ventral surface of the leaves, that is the abaxial surface of the leaves. So the adaxially placed palisade parenchyma, it is made up of elongated cells, as I had told you, and these elongated cells are arranged vertically to each other. So again here, when you draw the diagram, that is why you need to be very, very careful. So if you draw palisade parenchyma, so don't draw it horizontal, it is wrong. Why? Because in the case of dicotyledonous leaf, the palisade parenchyma, they are arranged vertically. This is wrong. It is not arranged horizontally, but it is arranged vertically. So they are arranged vertically and they are parallel to each other. That is, they are parallel to each other. They are arranged vertically close to one another with little bit of intercellular spaces, because we all know that parenchyma cells are loosely arranged with intercellular spaces. And this moving on to the spongy parenchyma, which are nothing but the cells of the spongy mesophyll. So here they are either oval or round, and they are usually loosely arranged, and they are situated below the palisade parenchyma cells, and they extend to the lower epidermis. That is, the spongy parenchymas are always concentrated to the lower epidermis, that is the abaxial surface. So this is about the parenchyma cells, which constitutes the spongy parenchyma and the palisade parenchyma. And apart from that, in the spongy parenchyma, as you can see, there are large number of or numerous air cavities that are present in them. So between the cells, there are large number of air cavities. So dicotyledonous leaf is mainly consists of, or it mainly constitutes the parenchyma cells, which is nothing but the palisade parenchyma towards the adaxial surface and the spongy parenchyma towards the abaxial surface. So there is no other types of cells being present in the dicotyledonous leaf other than the parenchyma cells. So next, moving on to the other main important part, that is the vascular system, which mainly helps in the conduction of the food, that is phloem, and water, that is xylem. So vascular bundles are usually seen located in the midrib. So you have, if there is a leaf, so we know that the leaves have a midrib, and from the midrib the other veins actually arises. So where are these vascular bundles situated? They can be mainly seen situated in this particular midrib portion. So it is just like, that is why the transport of the food materials and all that starts through the midrib, or it takes place through the midrib. So vascular bundles, they can be seen in the veins and also in the midrib. So these are the regions which actually the vascular bundles are usually situated. That is the midrib region and the vein region. And the size of the vascular bundle, actually it varies from different species of dicotyledonous plants depending on the size of the vein. So if the size of the midrib or the size of the veins are very, very small and minute, then the vascular bundles are also very small. And on the other hand, if it is very large, then the vascular bundles are also very large. Therefore, the size of the vascular bundles are usually dependent on the size of the veins that are present in the leaf. So what kind of veins? It is nothing but the reticular venation or the reticulate venation in the case of the dicotyledonous plants. And the veins, they are also vary in thickness in the reticulate venation. So you might have seen, because of the branching, the midrib will be very thick. Then the first vein that arises from the midrib will be less thicker than the midrib. Then all the other lateral veins that are arising, or the tertiary veins that are arising, will be even more less thicker than the lateral vein or the secondary vein that is arising from the midrib. So therefore, the veins are of different thickness in the case of reticulate venation in the dicotyledonous plant. So therefore, mainly because of this region, the concentration of vascular bundle also varies depending on the thickness and the size of the veins. And the vascular bundles, they are usually surrounded by a layer of thick walled bundle sheath cells. And the vascular bundles, They are surrounded by a layer of thick-walled bundle sheath cells. So sheath means layer. So they form a layer around the vascular bundle. So you can see here the vascular bundle here constituting the xylem and the phloem, and surrounding the vascular bundles, if you can see here, there is a layer of cells which is called as the bundle sheath. So this bundle sheath also has a lot of parenchymatous cells being present in them, and also they facilitate the process of photosynthesis. So that is a function of the bundle sheath. So therefore, it helps in even more synthesis of the food material, which can be utilized by the xylem, and the phloem, food material which can be utilized by the xylem, therefore transported to different parts of the plant body. Food materials which can be utilized by the phloem, and the water utilized by the xylem, which can be transported to different parts of the plant body. So that is the function of the bundle sheath here. So bundle sheath is also one of the characteristic features of the dicotyledonous plant. So where is it present in the leaf? It is usually a layer of cell that is present, which is very thick walled, and it is present around the vascular bundle. This is about the anatomy of the dicotyledonous leaf, wherein we have the adaxial epidermis, then the abaxial epidermis, the mesophyll cells, which is made up of palisade parenchyma, the spongy parenchyma, and the spongy parenchyma is filled with intercellular spaces, that is nothing but the air cavities, large air cavities it is filled with, and it has the vascular, the xylem and the phloem, which are mainly concentrated on the midrib region of the leaf and the veins, and surrounding the xylem and phloem there is a layer of thickened parenchymatous cells, which is nothing but the bundle sheath. So this is about the dicotyledonous leaf. So next, moving on to the monocotyledonous leaf, which is also called as isobilateral. So write a note on the isobilateral leaf. It means that it is nothing but the monocotyledonous leaf. Why it is isobilateral? Because both the adaxial, that is the upper surface and the abaxial, that is the lower surface of the leaf, they are one and the same. Bilateral. Bi means two. Bilateral, two sides. So bilateral means two sides. Iso means same. So the leaf has both the sides which are similar in morphology. So therefore it is called as isobilateral leaf. Both and all these. So we'll study about these one by one. So first we'll talk about the important outer covering, the epidermis. So epidermis here, one of the major differences between the dicot and the monocot is that in the dicot, the stomata are mainly concentrated on the lower epidermis, and on the upper epidermis, they are very few, that is in negligible numbers, or they may be completely absent. But in the case of monocotyledonous leaf, the stomata are present on both the surfaces. So they are present on the adaxial epidermis, and they are also present on the abaxial epidermis. So they are present on both the surfaces. So this is one of the, you can see here the stomatal cells. Here also there is the stomata, and at the bottom also there is the stomata being present. So this is about the epidermal cells or the epidermis, and the cuticle is usually absent. So cuticles are most of the time absent, and in some of the species it may be present. It depends on the species, and it is made up of mesophyll. So the mesophyll is parenchymatous, but it is not differentiated into palisade and spongy. So in the class or in a practical lab, if they place a slide under the microscope and ask you to identify, can you identify between a dicot leaf and a monocot leaf? The most important easy identification that you can do to distinguish between the two is that In the case of dicot leaf, they have palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma, which will be clearly visible to you under the microscope. But in the case of monocotyledons, they only have the parenchyma. That is only one kind of parenchyma cells, and there is no distinction between, or there is absence of the palisade parenchyma and the spongy parenchyma. This is one of the major differences between the dicot and the monocot leaf. So, the parenchyma cells, they are not differentiated into palisade parenchyma and the spongy parenchyma. So the mesophyll cells is completely parenchymatous, and I told you why it is called as mesophyll, because it is made up of parenchymatous cells which have chlorophyll pigments in them. That is why it is called as the mesophyll. And next comes the bulliform cells. So the presence of bulliform cells is also one of the major characteristic feature of the monocotyledon leaf, which is not found in the dicot. So dicots do not have this bulliform cells. So what are these bulliform cells? So in certain members of the monocots, especially if it is in the grass family, the adaxial epidermis, some of the cells that are present in the adaxial epidermis, they actually modify themselves into large colorless cells which are empty. They just look like bubbles. So if you see the adaxial epidermis, that is the upper epidermis, or the epidermis that is covering the dorsal surface of the leaf, you can see that there are some cells which are colorless and they look like bubbles. Epidermal cells, they look like bubbles. So such cells are called as the bulliform cells. So this presence of bulliform cells is also one of the characteristic feature. So this is about the monocotyledon leaf. So we shall study what is the function of the bulliform cells. The bulliform cells are the cells that appear just like a bubble, which is bulged, colorless, and they are present on the adaxial, that is the dorsal surface of the leaf, on the adaxial epidermis. So these bulliform cells, they have a major function in preventing the loss of water from the plant. So sometimes what happens, the leaves would have absorbed more than the amount of moisture or water that is needed. So at that time, what happens, a turgor pressure will be created, which will lead to the expansion of the epidermal cells, and those epidermal cells will remove the excess water, which are nothing but which the epidermal cells get converted into the bulliform cells, and those bulliform cells will help in removal of the excess of water. So that is one of the function. So they make the leaf surface become more exposed by expanding the leaf, wherein the bulliform cells are the ones which help in the expansion of the leaf, therefore removing the excess water, therefore facilitating more amount of transpiration, therefore removal of excess of water that is present in the leaf or that is not needed for the leaf. So that is one important function. And sometimes what happens, they make the cells flaccid, that is, when the cells become flaccid, what happens? The cells shrink and the sides of the leaves actually curl. Why it curls it? Because if it is curled, then the transpiration rate will be reduced or it will be stopped. Therefore, whenever there is scarcity of water, that is during water stress and all that, whenever there is a drought condition, these bulliform cells, they make the epidermal cells flaccid and they make the leaves to curl. So therefore, in order to minimize the loss of water. So when it curls inwards, what happens? The exposure of the stomata to the external surface is also limited. Not just that, it also reduces the leaf surface area, therefore the loss of water is prevented. So this is how it helps the leaf both during the excess amount of water, presence of excess water, and also when there is the presence of the lowest amount of water or during the water stress condition. So this is the function of the bulliform cells. And next, the parallel venation in monocot leaves, it is actually almost all the size. So here, as I told you, there is one more difference in when talking about the vascular bundles. So when talking about the vascular bundles of monocot leaves, almost all the vascular bundles, that is the xylem and the phloem, or the vascular bundle as a whole, it is actually same in size. So previously, while talking about dicotyledonous leaf, I had told you that the size of the vascular bundles, it varies depending on the thickness of the vein, right? But in one leaf itself, the thickness of the vein and the midrib varies. So if midrib is more thicker, then the veins and the veinlets are even more thinner, or maybe a bit slight thicker than when compared to the midrib. So therefore, the vascular bundles vary in shape and size, especially in size. But in the case of a monocot leaf, if this is a monocot leaf that is of a grass, all the veins are of equal size and thickness because they don't have a reticulate venation. They just have parallel venation, and all these veins are of equal size. And because of that, except in the main veins, like the parallel venation monocot leaves is reflected in the near similar sizes of vascular bundles. So therefore, what it means is that all the vascular bundles are almost of similar size because all the parallel veins are almost of similar size and thickness. So therefore, they are of all the vascular bundles are of similar size, unlike when compared to that of the dicotyledonous leaves. And also they sometimes it varies depending on the amount of water that is absorbed, and also the turgidity of the leaf and how the leaf surface is exposed, how much amount of water is lost. All that also it depends. Sometimes the size of the vascular bundle depends, but when it comes to the venation, almost because of the veins, the vascular bundles are almost similar in size. So this is about the vascular bundle. So we have the vascular bundles here, that is the xylem and the phloem being present. So throughout the leaf, they are of similar sizes. The vascular bundle is of similar size. So this is about the monocotyledonous leaf. So in today's session, we studied about the dicotyledonous leaf and the monocotyledonous leaf. So I had told you the dicotyledonous leaf, it is also called as the dorsiventral leaf, and monocotyledonous leaf, it is isobilateral in nature and also called as the isobilateral leaf. And one of the major difference that is present between the dicot leaf and monocot leaf in terms of anatomy is that the dicot leaves, they have the palisade and the spongy parenchyma, but the monocot leaves, they just have parenchyma wherein there is no differentiation into the spongy and the palisade parenchyma. And also in dicots, the vascular bundles are of different sizes depending on the thickness of the or size of the veins and the midrib, but in the case of monocots, they are almost similar in size because the veins are parallel in arrangement and they are almost of the same size and the thickness. So this is about the dicotyledonous leaf and monocotyledonous leaf. So in the coming session, we shall study about the secondary growth. So primary growth, so far whatever we studied regarding the cells and all that was the primary growth. So in the next coming sessions, we shall study about the secondary growth, wherein because of the secondary growth, there are different types of stems or the arrangement of cells in the stem that is being seen. So all that, what are different types of secondary growths that are there, all that we shall study in the coming session. So I hope you understood today's session well. We shall meet in the coming session. Thank you.